Meanwhile, we want to turn to Carlos Ghosn's great escape. Japan's justice minister is ordering an investigation into former Nissan boss Carlos Ghosn's escape. Grady Trimble is live this morning in Chicago. He has more on that. Grady, good morning to you.
Good morning, Maria. Details of the former Nissan exec's escape are coming out little by little, and the latest from Japanese state media is that he took a public bullet train from his home in Tokyo 3 hours to the airport in Osaka. And once he was at the airport, he was reportedly loaded into a large black box typically used for carrying audio equipment. That box reportedly had air holes so he could breathe and was too big to put through the X-ray machine at the airport. Japanese officials now investigating Ghosn's escape. They aren't saying much about the details, but the country's justice minister says it'll tighten immigration rules because of it. Ghosn made it to Lebanon through Turkey, as you see there. A private jet company there has filed a criminal complaint, and 5 people have been arrested after flight records were changed to remove any mention of Ghosn. 2 security guards from the U.S. were reportedly on board the private plane. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, Lebanon has no immediate plans to extradite Ghosn to Japan, even though there is that red notice from Interpol. Ghosn is expected, Maria, to hold a press conference on Wednesday, and I believe you mentioned you spoke with him and know a little bit about what to expect at that press conference.
Absolutely, Grady. Thank you so much. I spoke with Carlos Ghosn this weekend and talked a bit about what he's going to release on Wednesday and Thursday, and he said that he has actual evidence, documents that will prove that this was a coup to take him down. He said that he's going to name names. Some people from the Japanese government are behind this, that they wanted to take him out because he was going to merge Nissan with Renault. And once he gave up the CEO position to Mr. Sakawa, he said that that put him in a dangerous position. He should have left Japan altogether instead of being a support system for Sakawa. He also said that he was really unnerved and upset that he missed so much in terms of the Japanese judicial system. And the basically straw that broke the camel's back was the fact that the government told him he was unable, he was not allowed to speak to his wife, Carol Ghosn, even through the holidays. He was able to see his daughters and his cousins in this Tokyo apartment that the government put him in, but he was unable to see his wife or talk to her. And so he was not expecting a fair trial, and he said he's not going to sit in this apartment being watched 24/7 and know that he's not going to get a fair trial. He said he's willing to have his case heard in front of any court aside from Japan. And he said he's going to say that on Wednesday and Thursday. So we're going to be covering that, of course, when he does do that press conference. I sat down with his wife, Carol Ghosn, back in April on this program and asked her about her husband's trial in Japan. You're not allowed to speak to him?
No.
And what are they telling you in response to why you can't even, he can't even make a phone call?
This is their, you know, their judicial system. These are their laws, and this, you know, this is Japan, as they say.
I mean, they are the 3rd largest economy, and they said that they were a democracy, but there haven't been formal charges, and he can't defend himself. Do you believe he will get a fair trial?
Well, according to his lawyers, they're not too confident because the signs that we've been seeing, no.
You don't think he'll get a fair trial?
I don't think so. I hope he will, for our sake, because if he doesn't get a fair trial, Carlos is innocent. But, you know, his lawyers are not too confident.
And by the way, as proof that what he was doing was right, he points to the fact that since he left Nissan, the market capitalization of the company has dropped $12 billion. He said it needed to be merged, it needed help, but the government did not want to see it get acquired by a French company, that being Renault. Joining us right now is Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, I said it from the start, I've never seen a judicial system like this, the one in Japan.
Well, this is a judicial system.
There's no due process.
There's no due process. This is a judicial system in which you are presumed guilty rather than presumed innocent, because the government wins north of 99% of all criminal trials. Now, it gets to choose who it's going to try, and it only tries cases that it knows it's going to win. But Carlos Ghosn knew that he was not going to have the... What you just said
is so important. How could a system be fair if 99% of the people get convicted?
That's the answer.
It's just not fair.
The system is, excuse me, the system is profoundly unfair. look, this was a civil dispute over control of a corporation and whether or not it ought to have merged. To criminalize a civil dispute like this is a profound violation of basic human rights and certainly of our Western-style due process. What happens to him next is a little bit of a mystery. He's probably safe in Lebanon. A, there's no extradition treaty between Lebanon and Japan. B, he's very close to the current Lebanon government and to the power elites and the power structure in Lebanon. He would be in danger if he went to other countries. He also has to look over his shoulder, because if he is kidnapped in Lebanon and brought to Japan, Japan doesn't care how he got there. They don't care what crimes were committed to get him there. Now, I am sure he is well fortified and well protected. I'm saying this as someone who believes in the rule of law, but who understands that the rule of law as we appreciate it in the Western world flatly does not exist in Japan. And Ghosn and his people knew that.
Especially doesn't exist if you're not Japanese. Non-Japanese gaijin, that's how they treat people who are not from that country.
Well, they also treat their own people that way, but there probably is more of an incentive to treat outsiders that way.
Well, that's what Carlos said this weekend to me. He said that there are tens of thousands of people right now being faced by the same judicial system, that it's incredibly unfair and unjust, and that's why he fled.
Now, it's a terrible embarrassment to them. I mean, he walked out of his apartment, got into a train in public without a disguise on. He may have had the breathing mask on that a lot of Japanese people wear.
He was hidden in a case used for stereo equipment.
After he got into the case.
After he got off the train, which was a 3-hour train ride.
And that's why that's another thing that Carlos Ghosn said to me this weekend. He said they are so embarrassed because you can't even imagine how many security people. I always have people following me. Anywhere I went, there's people following me. Anything I said, it's tapped. My phones are tapped. So it's a complete egg on face for the Japanese, who are so proud, who think that they have this great security system in place.
Well, it'll be interesting to see and hear what he has to say on Wednesday. The idea that he would be tried elsewhere, well, I think that's just a throwaway. No other country is going to try him because, quite frankly, even if he did what they said he did, it's not a crime.
Yeah, but even the Journal writes, what was like a week ago or a couple of days ago, saying, who would blame Carlos Ghosn for leaving Japan and fleeing this situation? He's not fleeing to be unjust, to escape the law. He's fleeing because he doesn't expect he's going to get a fair shot.
This is not a Roman Polanski flee. This is a flee from a person who is innocent of the charges, and he's fleeing from a system that is perverse with respect to criminal defendants.
Well, speaking